This is the Heather Petero Show, where conversation meets calling. Well, this is the Heather Petero Show, and I am so glad to be with you today. I'm so excited about my guest today. It is a dear friend of mine who I actually met at a gospel event, and I sent her a questionnaire, and this is going to be really interesting. She says she's an introvert. She claims that, but I have questions because this introvert runs a fashion brand, pastors a church, records music, writes books, blogs about insecurity, raises two amazing daughters who are basically tiny comedians, and calls herself a top-tier people watcher, which is basically a polite way of saying she's been taking notes on you since she walked in. She's the author of High Insecurity by Insecurity, which sounds less like a devotional and more like the most decisive breakup text Insecurity has ever received. She's created a blog, Prayers and Punchlines. She runs the SB brand, a clothing line for the peculiar and confident, and she's from Detroit, which means there's grit, there's discernment, and there is a low tolerance for nonsense. Shaunee Brannan, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, you say you're introverted. Explain that, because from the outside, it looks like ministry leadership, fashion empire energy, blog honesty, bold captions, two daughters who inherited your whole personality. So what does introverted really mean to you?
It's all about how I recharge, how I process. I am married to an extrovert, so that makes it harder because I am pulled into conversations involuntarily. Oh my God, like I think it comes down to being a middle child for a while. My youngest brother was a surprise baby, but before him, I was a middle child. And I think I just was in between an older sister who was bossy and a younger brother. So that means he's not mature enough to play the games I want to play, and she only wants me to play the game she wants to play. So I did a lot by myself, like a lot of imaginative playing that I wanted to do. And I think I just got used to my own company and like recharging. I also think it's a matter of sometimes people's spiritual gifts, like how they process. And alone time for me is like, I need to process everything I feel in order to be social. So yeah, I just I don't like a lot going on.
Well, that is okay.
I don't.
So is being a top tier people watcher a spiritual gift or a survival skill?
Oh my God. I think it's both. I think it's part of a spiritual gift because I tend to feel people. I feel people a lot. And I wasn't always as introvert as I am now and like people watching as I am now, but I think I always picked up things that other people miss, which is why the comedy comes in because notice things and process it differently. And then writing. I'm a very creative writer, writing style to the point that when I would write my books, I had to get a specific type of person to spell check and not try to edit my personality out of the books. And so watching people, I love knowing people's life stories. I love knowing their background. I love knowing why they think the way they do because it lets you in on why they are the way that they are. And so I think it is a survival skill, but it's also just kind of part of what ties into my creativity as well.
Well, let's talk Detroit. Detroit does not produce timid women. How does that Detroit grit show up in all that you do?
I think it's a very no nonsense city. It also the culture here that we laugh about this all the time. People from Detroit leave and go to other cities, but are so proud that they're from Detroit. They will tell you in a minute, I'm from Detroit, but they don't live here anymore. They move for opportunity or whatever else. But I think growing up in the Detroit public school system, being around the culture. It is a very no nonsense type of city. People are real in the sense they're going to tell you what they think and they're going to tell you how they feel. And that's just the way it is. I mean, I don't want to say a dog eat dog type of city, but I think also we're a city that had the riots and we had other things happen, and you kind of had to be tough to rebuild. So some of that toughness is passed down. I know my parents raised us to be independent and taught us that if you want something in life, we're going to give you a good start with your basic needs being met, but you're going to have to go get it. And so um, that's kind of the culture that's passed down is, hey, no excuses, make it work one way or the other.
I love that. So, as a worship leader and pastor's wife, you have front row seats to humanity. What is the funniest thing you have ever seen happen from your vantage point on the platform?
Oh my God. I've had so many church stories that it's just like, seriously. I'll never forget one time I was traveling with a well-known gospel artist, and we went to a church down south, and this rogue evangelist, I say rogue because he probably was not supposed to be up there with the microphone, but when there's like a star in your church, somebody's bound to show off because this doesn't happen all the time. And he goes up there and he's like, I just want to read a scripture. Everybody turn your Bibles to the book of Plasms. And everyone's like, oh, what? And he's talking about Psalms. He was
Oh,
dead serious. He said phlasms. So multiply that story times like 25 more. I have so many funny things that happen in church, honestly.
well, have you ever locked eyes with someone mid nap?
Okay, not while I was speaking, but definitely, yes. Probably one of who was my brother, who's notorious for falling asleep in church, always has been. So, yeah.
What about the art of silent snack unwrapping?
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm guilty of it. There's a couple of people in my church because, churches now have refreshment carts and stuff like that. And so if you're giving people food, they're gonna unwrap it and service. Like if they're hungry nowhere else, they need a snack in church. So yeah.
What about someone passionately worshiping while checking Instagram?
Oh yeah, that happens. That happens all the time. I catch people on their phones all the time.
So, have your daughters ever said something in church that required immediate prayer?
My God. Cadence, my youngest, is the one. She's she's the one. If there's gonna be a need for like, I can't believe you right now, it's her. It's gonna be her. So yeah. She keeps me on my toes.
So, does watching people make you more compassionate or just more aware of how human we all are?
Definitely more aware. Like it makes you less judgmental actually, because once you start understanding that people are not just the way that they are for no reason, good or bad, you are less likely to have opinions about people. There have been times that certain personalities just get on my nerves and may not necessarily be my favorite person to be around, but then when you start watching or talking to them or dialoguing, you start to see like, oh, okay, I understand why they're like that. And it just makes you a little less judgmental, actually.
So, let's talk about the beautiful tiny humans in your life, your girls. What has been the best thing about being a girl mom who you're being a fashionista yourself? What's the best thing about being a girl mom?
I get to shape them. I think that there's a lost art with women being ladies and the culture of being just a lady and owning femininity. And I get to shape that in them and teach them and reproduce an appreciation for femininity, natural beauty. I'm kind of having to combat some of that now because they're getting older and teaching them to appreciate natural beauty, less makeup, less fake this, less fake that, because appreciation for how you're made and who you are. And I'm all for additives. I do it here and there, but getting to shape another generation of stronger women that know who they are, and um, just kind of see my good qualities passed to them and not the ones that I had to struggle through. And so it's kind of rewarding to see that I beat some things and that they're not going to have to deal with it because I beat it.
My favorite Facebook post of yours are when you tell on them. They are comedy gold. Do they know they are building your content strategy?
Yes, they do, and they hate it. They hate it. Like one of them, well, two of them. One of my friend goes to the church, and she puts shoulder pads in a lot of her clothes. Some people just like shoulder pads, and the thing about shoulder pads, once you start wearing them, you feel naked without them. Almost like some people are like, I don't have on my earrings. So she's putting in shoulder pads and everything, and they come to me and say, Mom, what is wrong with her shoulders? Why are her shoulders so high? Like they both were asking me, and I was like, oh my God. I said, guys, those are shoulder pads. What are those? Her shoulders are so high all the time. Like they really thought it was her shoulders. And when I told her, she and I laughed so hard, but they were so mad. They said, you don't go and tell what we told you. They don't want me telling the stuff they do. But I'm like, you guys are funny and you don't know you're funny. So yeah, they are content every day, every day.
So, are you worried when they get older they'll come back on you with those stories?
Oh, they'll probably have a ton of stories about me and my husband for sure. Yeah.
So, speaking of that, do you think they're more like your husband or more like you?
So that's the thing. The oldest one looks just like me, but she's like her dad. Very just free spirit, just la la la. The youngest looks just like him, but it's like me. And so she's very particular. She's going to follow the rules the way you say it and do it the way you say it. And she's very analytical. You can't just tell her anything without her saying, no, that doesn't make any sense. Like, so you see the personalities switch. One looks like one, the other looks like the other, but the personalities definitely you can see the similarities. Yeah.
It's wonderful to see them grow up like that, isn't it? I only have
Yeah.
one, so he's a nice mix of my husband and I. So
Aw.
he's got his daddy's red hair though, that's for sure. So let's talk the SB brand. Your tagline is clothing for the peculiar and confident. And in some spaces, peculiar can mean just flat out weird, but you mean it like a crown. What does peculiar actually mean to you?
I think it means different. Like just really, I think the way we dress is an expression of our creativity. Like, and not everyone chooses to express their creativity in fashion. They may choose to do it another way, but I think it can be an expression of your creativity and being different. I love seeing people own what makes them different, because I think that's the best way. One of the best ways to see God in people is He's invested creativity in all of us. And when we are so busy just trying to be like whatever else we've seen, and there's certainly times for models and to follow a blueprint, but when I see people just step into whatever form of creativity they have, and they're confident in it and they're owning it even if it's weird to somebody else, I just really love it. And so when I started my store, I wanted to be able to offer pieces that were different. I certainly have basic pieces that the everyday person can pick up and buy, but I wanted things that were creative and that were unique and that just were really an expression of what I like to wear and, how I like to look. And so, yeah, just for somebody who's saying, I don't want the same thing everybody else is wearing. Let me be artistic for once. And so definitely that's the approach.
So I would say it's boutique with a purpose, right? And
Oh
I think
yeah.
that's great. So you sell a type of pants called petal pants, like the flower.
Uh-huh.
Explain petals.
So like the flower petals that are kind of layered on each other. These pants, like the bottom of them are kind of like, they layer once you walk. But the reason I really like them, I really try to buy clothes that um, complement the body and that level the body. If you're top heavy or bottom heavy, like things that kind of create a confidence in you're not adjusting and you're not having to be uncomfortable to look fashionable. And so a lot of my clothes sometimes have volume in certain places, but it's for a reason. Because I'm really trying to balance most shapes and create like a sense of comfort. And so those, for example, are one of the pants that do that. They're comfortable, but at the same time, they give you just a little element of fashion in what would basically be a brown pant, just a brown slacks. Now you have brown slacks that have a little bit of character to them.
So every petal is different, every petal is essential, and no petal is the whole flower, right? So, how do we
Exactly.
stop trying with fashion to be the entire bouquet and just embrace our specific petal?
I think that number one, knowing what you like and don't like, but not being afraid to try things is good. And I also think embracing your boundaries. I'm all for that. And one day I'm going to talk about it in length, and it'll probably either some people may say, okay, thank you for finally saying it, or it may hurt some people's feelings. The body positivity movement is in some cases without boundaries because every body type, whether you are a size 2 or a size 22, has boundaries. I don't think a woman that's a size 2 should still be going without a bra in certain clothing. They may say, well, I have no chest, but sometimes it's about accentuating your positives. And you can be a very, very plus size woman but still have positives that you want to show or that you want to kind of mask. And I say that as someone who's been everything from a size 6 to a size 16. So I've been a plus size woman before, before I went, once I came off the road singing professionally for gospel artists, I had gained a lot of weight. I was a size 16 because you're eating, you're on tour, you're traveling, singing, eating. And then after having kids, I was heavy. And so I've had a small petite body, and then I had a body that had bigger everything, where you're not the same size and your waist is bigger and your chest and your back. And so when I would tell people after I lost the weight what size I was, they would say, I would have never known that. Well, it was because I learned this isn't the time to wear this top that you like. You need to wear this one instead. Like I respected where my body was until I could get it back to where I wanted it to be. I didn't just say, well, I love who I am and take it or leave it. And I think part of getting a petal here and there, like you said, and not trying to be the whole flower is number one, respecting where your body is and saying, am I showing the best version of where I am right now? Like, am I presenting myself in a way where I'm comfortable, but where I'm showing the good parts? And I just think part of having body positivity is saying, I really love this about my body. And this is an area I'm still working on, or that's a challenge. And you're not slighting yourself to say, this area needs a little bit more attention. Let me cover this, or let me address this area of my body in a certain way. Like fashion is really about conscious choices, and that's where I stand with that for sure.
So, what are some things we can do today to embrace God's design of our body in originality and uniqueness? You kind of touched on that a little bit, but let's dig in a little deeper.
I would say I don't think that there's anything wrong with if say like if you have friends that are more fashionable. I have friends come to me sometimes and ask for my help. My plan is to roll out the styling portion of my site soon, but I've had friends come to me off the record to say, "Can you help me with this or can you help me with that?" If you know you have a friend that's fashionable, that who you trust, to ask them for recommendations, or to ask them, even have them come over and look in your closet and put things together for you. Sometimes we're sitting on a gold mine in our own closet and we just don't really know how to put things together, or haven't thought outside of how we've put them together. I also think not being afraid to own, like, if you're just a basic type of person, like, people ask me all the time, who are some of my favorite fashion people? For men, I love the way David Beckham dresses. I tell my husband all the time, as long as you're dressing like David Beckham, you will be fine. But David Beckham is really a crisp white t-shirt and very nice jeans type of guy. But his look is so clean and like polished to him that it looks good. And some people do a good job of just getting quality items. Like Steve Jobs wore all black all the time, black t-shirt, black jeans, but they were nice black t-shirt, nice black jeans, like quality pieces. And if you're a minimalist, own being a minimalist. If you are somebody who's mixing multiple shapes. Like I like mixing prints. I love the way it plays on the eye. Own it. Like whatever it is that you really feel like this is how I dress and this is what I like to do, own it fully. And I think that you start to feel better when you can look and say, this is an extension of what I like and what I put together.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So that modesty, I mean, and you're teaching that holiness doesn't require burlap and beige anymore, right? You
Exactly.
can be spiritually deep and still fashionably fly at the same time, right?
Absolutely.
So, Shawnee, how does putting on something bold, like those mixed prints, which I think that is pretty bold because, we were taught, oh, you don't mix prints, right? Right. So, how does that help you say goodbye to insecurity?
I think that the feeling of being insecure kind of has to not be there beforehand in order to feel confident mixing prints. Or let's just say, hey, that's going to take a lot of work for me to get there in my journey of identity before I'm able to do that. Sometimes, like for example, right now I have been slowly styling my husband. He is a big guy. And I have been trying to get him out of everything skinny, skinny, skinny. I have been trying because baggy is actually in now for men and even for women. So I've been slowly buying him baggy things because I think it will look nice on him. He has been fighting me. Like he's the hardest person to dress that I've ever had to dress because he's going to fight me. But what started happening, I would send him to church and these clothes I was buying and all of these compliments started rolling in. And compliments are his love language. I told him if I ever wanted to just get whatever I want, I just have to compliment you and I'll get it. Like he literally is a compliment hound.
Words of affirmation guy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. You can stroke him easy.
Well, you're doing what a lot of women wish they could do is if they could style their husbands, but I think
Yeah.
a lot of women are scared tell their husbands, hey, that doesn't look good, or don't wear that, because, that's not very nice always, right? To tell your
Sure,
partner that, hey, you don't look good today, but, there's some men just don't have good fashion choices, and there are some women that don't have good fashion choices, right?
sure, sure. Yeah, and
So do you feel like your brand helps them make good fashion choices?
I do because I really explain some of the logic behind some of the pieces. Everything that I pick is versatile, meaning season to season, can be worn as a dress or a jacket. Like I really try to give people options so that they aren't constantly having to shop. Like each piece can be worn multiple ways, or you're getting your money's worth. I try to show them ways to wear it as a dress or a shirt, or I really try to open people up to see the possibilities, and they say, "Oh, I never would have thought to wear it that way." That's actually kind of too how I started fashion blogging, and why it turned into a store is because we grew up in a very strict church as far as the rules, and there would be a lot of things I wanted to wear, but of course you can't wear it. And so I would find other ways to wear it. If it was like a halter dress, I would put a blouse under it, and people say, "Oh, I would have passed on that because I would have never thought to wear it that way." So that's kind of what got me started is I saw I had the ability to open people's eyes to options for wear, and it just went into a business somehow.
That's
So yeah,
amazing. So, Shawnee, if
yeah.
confidence had a closet, what is hanging front and center?
Oh, I would say front and center is identity. Like how you identify as a person, who you identify with is critical. I struggled with insecurity for years, and even still, I just think anybody that tells you that they never get insecure is just not telling the truth. I think if you've ever struggled with insecurity, it pops back up at some point in your life. And I wrote in my book about it being circumstantial or it being a part of your identity. Like certain circumstances make you insecure. When I became a new mom, I was insecure for a minute until I learned how to take care of my children. You're not sure of yourself, but when it's just a part of who you are, it bleeds into everything. And I think when I learned how to identify who I was through God, it just changed everything. And of course, there's still moments where you battle with yourself, depending on what it is. But just knowing that you're deeply loved and cared for no matter what, no matter whether you get it right or wrong, like when you just know you're deeply cared for, it just gives you all of the confidence to branch out because there's no fear of judgment. And ultimately, love, perfect love removes fear, which is ultimately fear of judgment. So if you don't fear being judged by the one who you identify with which is God, who ultimately loves you unconditionally, it frees you to just dress in a way that is your ultimate expression. You don't really care what other people have to say when the one who you identify from has all positive things to say. And so, it just you're not second guessing yourself. If we stop second guessing ourselves, the things that would be possible from us instinctively are limitless for sure.
So, let's talk about your book. You wrote this book called High Insecurity by Insecurity. That title is Eviction Notice Energy. Share with us your message in that book. We've already been talking a little bit about it, but bring it home a little bit more for us.
I just talk in the book about my journey with where some of my insecurities came from, some of the poor decisions that I made. I remember saying in the book that every poor decision you've ever made can be traced back to a root of insecurity. When you are not secure and anchored in the right understanding of who you are, your decisions just lead you places because you're searching for who you are most times. And it's really helping people to discover areas within their life where they lack identity, where they lack security in who they are and who God has made them to be, and then teaching them how to uproot them, like hidden places. I even talk about cliques, how cliques are different than like a friend group where everybody is their friendships are coming from a healthy place, but cliques are comprised of people who all are bringing pieces of themselves together to form a whole person. Nobody's whole on their own, but together we form this whole person and nobody else is welcome. So it's little things that sometimes we don't realize are our insecurities pouring into our lives. We don't see it as that. We just think it's normal because our eyes haven't been open. And so I really try to do the work in the book to open people's eyes to what it is when it's working in their life.
Well, you say we're chosen, and that's an identity. It's a title, right? And how did you become that settled with yourself within knowing who you were in that identity?
I I went through a period of really searching and making very, very poor decisions. And when I came out of that season of making poor decisions, the Lord asked me to give him a year. And at this time, I wasn't like a real strong Christian. I wasn't just really strong in my faith, but I was trying to get there. And the Lord asked me to give him a year of no dating. And after the relationship I come out of that just wreaked all kind of havoc in my life, I was like, yes, you can have a year. Now before that, I probably would have been like, oh, this is going to be so hard because I was young. It was dating age. I was being asked out all the time. And because I was insecure, it was doing something for my insecurities. And the Lord said, give me a year. And so for a year, I did not date anyone. And when I'm saying I did not date anyone, I didn't go out for coffee. I didn't get on the phone and sit on the phone talking to anybody. I really gave God a year of my time. And I would spend time talking to him and developing my relationship with him. And in that year, he showed me who I was and how valuable I was to him. And it just did something work in the book to open people's eyes to what it is when it's working in their life.
Well, God does have a best plan for us, and that identity is definitely in
Hmm.
Him. Let's talk
Yeah.
about the blog a little bit. Prayers and Punchlines. I love that title. Tell us about it.
I think that prayer, I wrote another book called The 365 Prayer Project, and it takes people through a year of praying and journaling with God. But I really try to take the guesswork out of prayer with people. Of course, there's dimensions of prayer and there's deep ways to go into prayer with God and the heavenlies, and certainly it's wonderful. But I have found that there are a lot of people that go to church regularly, some of who have gone to church their entire lives that don't pray, and it is because they feel inadequate. They feel like they can't do it like the people they see at church that are spiritual leaders or platform personnel, and they just feel like they're not doing it right. And I tell everybody that I tried to do it that way when I started my journey with the Lord. I tried to do it all of the ways I'd seen, but I did not have a breakthrough in prayer until I started talking to God like I'm talking to you now. When I started talking to God like myself, that's when I heard him start talking back. And I realized God wants a friend. He wants conversation. He wants to know that you value him like you would anybody else. I teach a method that I call continuous prayer, meaning you are praying without ceasing. You're talking to God all day, the same way your husband can text you right now, Heather, wherever you are, and you don't view it as an intrusion. And you could be picking up on a conversation you had last night, and then when you get home, you'll finish it. But he has open access where he can reach you anytime and you guys can converse. I feel like it has to be like that with God, to where I may start the conversation with him in the morning. I may pick it up on the way to work. I may pick it up when I leave the gym. I may pick it up after lunch. Like I'm an open door in my conversation with God all day. He doesn't have a box. Like I'm going to talk to you from 6:30 to 7. No, we're in conversation all day. Once I started implementing that in my relationship with him, the level of sensitivity that I developed to his voice. And I just tell people, like, start talking to God as yourself. Um, you will get the fastest response than if you come, oh, grateful Savior. And if you talk that way, oh, grateful Savior, well, then, okay, that's what he wants to hear from you. But if you don't, he's just looking for a friend and he's looking for you to view him as a friend. And I just think we complicate prayer. We make people feel like they have to be completely clean to come. And people say God doesn't hear a sinner's prayer. Well, how else will you come to him if you have to be perfectly forgiven? Make it make sense. Like we say things that are not true, and we remove the sacrifice that Jesus gave. He made a way for us to come, even at our worst, to find just repentance and everything else that's available to us. So I really remove this pious sense of perfection, because once you start talking to God, He will create in you this heart that looks like His, but you have to start talking to Him.
Right. And I mean, some of my best prayers and my most intimate times with God have not happened in the church building. I have a friend that talks about breath prayers, and that as we take a breath or release a breath all the way throughout the day, that we can be in conversation with God throughout the day. So, what can the church and ministry leaders do better at helping people understand prayer and how to pray it as a daily practice?
Um, I think that being able to customize, taking a customized approach to your faith is so powerful. I don't like giving people a blanket way of serving God and doing things with God, because then it takes out the customized area. And I think that church leadership should be pushing people, or the church as a whole, to develop something customized as far as their faith, for sure.
So, if someone that's listening today wanted to start praying, where would they start? Give them a step by step.
Um, I would say start as yourself. Like, how do you go talk to your mother or your best friend or, your boss? Like, go to God and start sharing the concerns of your heart. So if there are things on your heart, for me, when I started, it was very basic. I was having a hard time at work at that time, and I would come in and say, God, man, I'm angry about this, and I'm angry. I would just dump everything that was going on, something I would have told a love interest or someone else. God was getting that space. And I think when you start to give God the space that he needs, or that you would give to someone else just in general conversation, it becomes comfortable to keep having these conversations with him on a very basic level.
Right. It's good stuff. So let's shift gears and let's talk about your heart for creatives. I think this ties right into this insecurity, and maybe some shrink down a little bit because of that insecurity. On the first podcast I talked about the permission to create, and that we have so much information out there, but what we really need is more expression. And with that, why do you think so many people, especially adults, need to know that it is okay to be creative, to create freely, and to express themselves?
I think that a lot of people don't think that they're creative. sometimes I go places to speak and I say, can the creatives in the room raise your hand? And it's almost always singers and musicians. And then I'll say, everybody in here should have their hand raised, and they're shot. Um, some people don't think that they're creatives unless they paint or sing or dance, or music. Like they just don't think that they're creatives. And I think that one of the greatest tools of healing is creativity. I tell people all the time that after I had my second daughter, I had postpartum depression. I had it with the first one and it went away fairly fast. It was like I needed to adjust to a new life. But with the second one, I had it again. And I was trying to figure out why it was lingering. And God had me to watch a movie, and it was a secular movie. And He spoke this movie to me. And when I went and watched it, it was of a lady who was a creative, and she had one of her greatest creations was bought by a millionaire, and he tore it down. It was like a beautiful award-winning home. And her mental space could not handle that. And she shut down and she stopped creating. And she became like destructive to herself, her family, everyone around her, because she stopped creating. Once she started back creating, her mental illness went away. And God began to show me like this is what's wrong. You stop creating because of complacency, because of life. And when I started back writing and doing the things that were an extension of my creativity, things I prayed about, things I just read about and tried to deal with, it didn't work. When I started back creating, is when I became whole again. And I say all of that to say, some of us are just sitting on things that we do not think are an extension of creativity. My mother crochets. She'll sit in a chair and crochet for hours. She's creating things, certainly that people can buy and a source of revenue, but for her, it is her releasing a God side. Like God put that in her. He put this in us. And when you start to release that, it ministers to you before it does anybody else. And so I just think people do not think what they do every last single day effortlessly is creative. And I would say rethink it. If you go and work in your yard and create a beautiful flower bed, that's creativity. Everybody has a way of being creative. There's people that buy furniture and repurpose it. That's creativity. Working with your hands and your mind and your imagination. It's not. Um, we put ourselves in a box, and I would say take yourself out of a box for sure.
That's good stuff. We also have to create for the sake of creation, because not all of what we create is for public eye or public feedback. Sometimes it's just for us or for a person, like your mom crocheting, it's for somebody, or even just for a season, right? And we have to be obedient even
Right.
when nobody claps, right?
That's right.
All right. So on the show, we always do a quick fire section. So don't think too hard, right? Just answer, okay?
Okay.
So coffee or
Okay.
tea, and how many cups before pastor mode activates?
I would say coffee black. I like my coffee black, and I like at least 3 cups.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a coffee head.
Okay.
Yeah, it's bad.
Okay. Favorite candy?
Uh, chewy, sour gummy bears, the worst kind. I love them.
Okay. And you and I have a similar hate for one kind of candy. Do you remember what it is?
Candy corn is disgusting to the maximum level of disgusting.
It is so incorrect, right? All right. What is one song you never skip, secular or worship?
I would say Defender. I,
Okay.
I would say Defender. I love that song.
And who is that
Rita
by?
Springer. Rita
Rita
Springer.
Springer. Yeah. What's a
Yeah.
secular song you never skip?
Uh, Shamefully Folded by Kalani. It is like it is like the rave right now, and I like it. I do.
So if it comes on in Target, are you having your own dance party in aisle 7?
Definitely.
So if you were banned from your job tomorrow, what are you doing?
I would go finish writing. I have been writing a book for a while. I would just pour everything into finishing it for sure.
All right, that's awesome. What would you like to do when with Gail, your husband, when the girls all grow up?
Travel, travel, foreign country after foreign country,
Oh, that's
travel for
awesome.
sure.
Well, you say you're settled with yourself, and that's rare, it seems, in this day and time, right? If there's someone who is listening who
Hmm.
feels too loud, too creative, too emotional, not creative enough, too different, too ambitious, not enough, or even afraid of their own design, speak directly to them.
I would first say, figure out where those feelings come from. I told our church not too long ago that 9 times out of 10, the negative thoughts we rehearse of ourselves didn't come from us, they came from somebody else. I think that there are things that we hear spoken about us or over us as children that are negative. I remember always being a leader. Whether I tried to or not, I just stood out in a group of kids. I could get kids to do whatever I was doing. And I had some adults that just may have labeled me. I would hear, oh, she's bad. And she's, you know, adults don't realize when kids hear those things, they internalize them because you're an adult and you don't have to be their parent. They just have a respect for you because you're older. And I think sometimes those little seeds are planted when we're young and then we grow up with them. And it really does take God to show you some of the roots that are in you, why you feel the way you feel about yourself. We don't come up with these things on our own. There are things within us that we believe, and you have to ask yourself, why do I believe that? And once you start rooting out those thoughts that are fighting you, because it's rarely the things other people are saying about us. We have conversations with ourselves about us. And I think dealing with those really creates a freedom for you to just live and be who you are. Also, I can tell you, as a pastor that has dealt with people now for 16 years and has sat down with multiple situations, conditions, past, present, like no one can really make me feel bad about myself because I know that people everywhere are quietly fighting things you don't know about. So if you're thinking that people are they're going to judge me and they're going to say, listen, if they do, trust me, they have their own stuff they're working through. It's just once you start to understand humanity and people, you realize nobody's opinion can stop you from becoming whatever you're pursuing. Like you just really need to know they don't have a say as much as they try to act like they do, and that will settle you as well.
So, how does someone start saying hi to their identity and bye to insecurity today?
I would say really two things. Work on your relationship with God because he'll affirm you and shape you and show you who you are. But I also think really having conversations with your family, finding out more about your parents and your grandparents and how they were raised and where they came from. I had very enlightening conversations with my mom and dad and my grandmother. It opened my eyes to just a lot of generational things, good and bad, that were in my life that I needed to deal with. Sometimes God will give you all of these great things, but then He'll lead you to your origin where you start to realize where you really come from. And it frees you in a way that the information alone is invaluable because now you have a root of much of why you are the way you are. So yeah, definitely.
Well, Shaunee, thank you so much for sharing and being here today. You are always a joy. I love being connected to you. So tell my listeners on how we can find you in the SB brand.
Well, you can go to my website, ShauneeBrannan.com. That is where my blog is. That is where options to have me come speak at your church or your event, ministry event, or corporate event, whatever. You can go to my website for that. You can also find my books on that website. The SB brand is where my fashion page is, and that's www.thesbbrand.com, where we have faith merchandise, boutique apparel, custom clothing is there.
So today we learned pray, just do it, dress boldly, embrace our unique design, and don't let insecurity rent space in our head. Thank you so much, Shaunee.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
All right, see you guys next time. You've been listening to the Heather Petero Show, produced by Heather Petero Studios. Connect with us on Facebook or Instagram, or visit heatherpetero.com. Until next time, stay creative and live on purpose.